Hello everyone and welcome back to the Polity pages. Today we're going back into it with George Orwell's 1984. When this goes up, it will have been like 2.5 months since the last episode of 1984. It's December 24th right now, but this will go up in exactly 2 weeks, January 7th. I think I explained it in the Brave New World episode, I think, that I kind of want, like, who's sitting on their computer during the holiday season. And I also just don't want to stress to pump these out, even though I am pumping these hella out, grinded on them and whatnot. But who wants to watch this just during the holiday, Christmas season? You know, you're off work probably, got a couple days, whatever. You ain't want to watch me. I feel like my show should be something you come home from work, long day, and then you turn me on and you start drinking because I suck. No, I'm the best thing ever. But anyway, yeah, we're back. 1984. Without further ado, I say let's get into it. I haven't done any kind of a review. I don't really remember where we were. First chapter, I think we were talking about I think we started to get some inklings of the security state. I remember the Big Brother poster. Right, he was right. He found the notebook. He was writing in his little notebook, and down with Big Brother and all that. And we began a discussion of thought crimes. There was minutes hate, hour hate, something like that. 2 minutes hate, whatever. Just some interesting stuff going on. If you want to go right back to that video, I wouldn't necessarily recommend it because it was before video. It was before I got video on this thing, so it's not the best thing to watch. Check it out on Spotify. If you're on Spotify, hey, what's up? I'm just gonna start reading chapter 2. Let's see how many pages it is. Not many. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I could have just looked at the freaking number. We're going from 106 to 114. That's like 8. I counted wrong. Who knows? But let's get into it. Happy New Year. Chapter 2. As he put his hand to the doorknob, Winston saw that he had left the diary open on the table. Down with Big Brother was written all over it, in letters almost big enough to be legible across the room. It was an inconceivably stupid thing to have done. But, he realized, even in his panic, he had not wanted to smudge the creamy paper by shutting the book while the ink was wet. He drew in his breath and opened the door. Instantly, a warm wave of relief flowed through him. A colorless, crushed-looking woman with wispy hair and a lined face was standing outside. So, this guy, he's like panicking because someone knocked at the door. And he even in his panic, he didn't want to smudge the ink. I can take that a couple of ways. Because, like, handwriting is such an old art form. It's something they don't really do. I think it's like the speak right that they have. They don't really do handwriting, so he's considering it like an ancient art he doesn't want to ruin. But at the same time, maybe you could consider there's like this rebelliousness, and there's definitely a rebelliousness in him that he doesn't want the possibility of Down with Big Brother to be smudged and erased. Even though, you know, that would be probably good for him. He probably should have closed it. "Oh, comrade," she began in a dreary, whining sort of voice. "I thought I heard you come in. Do you think you could come across and have a look at our kitchen sink? It's got blocked up and..." Is this guy, is he a plumber? Is he a handyman? Do they have handyman in this world? It was Mrs. Parsons, the wife of a neighbor on the same floor. I remember Mrs. Parsons for some reason. Mrs. was a word somewhat discountenanced by the party. You were supposed to call everyone comrade, but with some women, One used it instinctively. That's interesting as well. You see that in like Brave New World in a different sort of sense. Here they talk about the phrase was discountenanced by the party and not necessarily... I'm thinking to the word parent. Word parent, mother, the normal words like Mrs. that aren't weird to us at all, but they do convey facts of life and society. Mrs. is a woman who is married. Maybe marriage doesn't necessarily exist in the party. And like mother and father, those are your first teachers, right? And the family is the fundamental unit of society. So it makes sense for a communal society, for a collectivist regime to want to nix words that suggest interpersonal unity instead of person-to-state unity. It's kind of how I see that. Calling everyone comrade. You know, we're all in this together. Everyone's a comrade. She was a woman of about 30, but looking much older. One had the impression that there was dust in the creases of her face. Winston followed her down the passage. These amateur repair jobs were an almost daily irritation. Victory Mansions were old flats, built in 1930 or thereabouts, and were falling to pieces. The plaster flaked constantly from ceilings and walls. The pipes burst in every hard frost. The roof leaked whenever there was snow. The heating system was usually running at half steam when it was not closed down altogether from motives of economy. We see talks of economy again in 1984. I just read that chapter of Brave New World yesterday, so it's fresh in my mind. And they were talking about how they condition people to consume transport. They condition them for economic reasons. This is a much more analog book where they keep you sedated with force instead of with you literally cannot think to rebel. Here they keep you sedated with force, and everything is dirty and grungy. It's like the opposite of Brave New World, where everything is clean and beautiful and perfect, and science is amazing and everything's working well. There is no war because you're conditioned to not be able to war. It's kind of like there are two views of socialism here, right? George Orwell, who was an English socialist at the time, definitely you see socialism in the light that it makes the elite eliter, and it makes the poor poorer, and it doesn't do what it's supposed to do. And if it did what it was supposed to do, it would be immoral. But then with Brave New World, it's like, what if socialism worked and everyone was perfectly equal because nobody had, different backgrounds? There was no such thing as human greed. We see they kind of focus on different parts of socialism, communism, dictatorialism, fascism even, these types of authoritarianism in general. Different points of view of authoritarianism and different points of view how science progresses. This 1984, obviously based in 1984, allegedly, not sure if they've mentioned it yet, but they don't know what year it is, actually. Based in 1984, and the apartments were built in 1930, only 50 years old, right? Assumedly, the world was normal around 1930, about when this was written. Brave New World, they talk about the first Model T having been invented hundreds of years ago. So Brave New World, far in the future. 1984, not so much in the future, but we still saw encroaching dictatorialism. It's both of these books really is kind of a technocracy, because in a sense, Brave New World more so because they use technology to alter your genetics to freaking raise test tube babies. But 1984, they have the telescreen, which watches you all the time. So the early 1900s, we saw evolution of a lot of technology, new technology coming out, and fear around it, of course, and how it could be used, not far from how it is being used. But off of that soapbox, so to say, let's get back to it. So the heater ain't working good because of the economy. Repairs, except what you could do for yourself, had to be sanctioned by remote committees which were liable to hold up even the mending of a window pane for 2 years. There again, we see the problem with like socialized right? Like Canadian healthcare, to get an MRI, you have to wait like years. English healthcare, years. It's socialized, it's free. You'll probably die first before you can get anything. People complain about the American healthcare system, and it's not that bad. Just like have health insurance. That's all I have to say. Anything major, it really does cover most stuff. Me, my fiance, never had a problem with health insurance. You shouldn't go around killing CEOs over it. All I'm saying, there is a way. If anything, stop making money and then get on Medicaid. I've had Medicaid my whole life, and it's pretty good, which is concerning. What do poor people doing to deserve this if supposedly private health insurance is so bad? Which again, never had a problem with. My grandparents were on private health insurance their whole life through my grandpa. Never had a problem with it. It's like, this is one of them things, people will complain when we're at such a point in society. America is so great. America is such a first world country that we have no perspective of the world and how terrible it can be. Yeah, I'm okay with medical debt. I'm okay with medical debt existing, because it's like, if you were in Africa, you would have just died. Or you wouldn't have gotten any care if you're in a socialized healthcare country. Denmark, Finland, what I don't know. I don't know what countries have socialized healthcare. It's stupid. From my point of view, argue with me in the comments. But please, if I'm wrong, let me know. Anyway, so they're putting off the mending of a window pane for 2 years. Of course, it's only because Tom isn't home, said Miss Parsons vaguely. The Parsons flat was bigger than Winston's. If you're super American, flat is like it's an apartment. It's a lodging. It's a domicile. The Parsons flat was bigger than Winston's, and dingy in a different way. Everything had a battered, trampled-on look, as though the place had just been visited by some large, violent animal. Games impedimenta, hockey sticks, boxing gloves, a burst football, a pair of sweaty shorts turned inside out, lay all over the floor, and on the table there was a litter of dirty dishes and dog-eared exercise books. Impedimenta. I can't say I've ever heard that word before. I assume it's kind of similar to paraphernalia, based on the context. Context clues. On the walls were scarlet banners of the Youth League and the Spies, and a full-size poster of Big Brother. Interesting how Big Brother would let you live in such, dirty squalor. There was the usual boiled cabbage smell common to the whole building, but it was shot through by a sharper reek of sweat, which, one knew this at the first sniff, though it was hard to say how, was the sweat of some person not present at the moment. In another room, someone with a comb and a piece of toilet paper was trying to keep tune with the military music, which was still issuing from the telescreen. I wonder how the piece of toilet paper plays into that. Because I know you can use a comb and you doing on it. Toilet paper. I'm trying to make an image, but there's no image is being evolved from that. So we're getting a lot more image of just, this place sucks. This place is terrible. Cabbage smell. It's dingy in all sorts of ways. Terrible. "It's the children," said Mrs. Parsons, casting a half-apprehensive glance at the door. "They haven't been out today, and of course..." She had a habit of breaking off her sentences in the middle. The kitchen sink was full nearly to the brim with filthy, greenish water, which smelt worse than ever of cabbage. Winston knelt down and examined the angle joint of the pipe. He hated using his hands, and he hated bending down, which was always liable to start him coughing. Mrs. Parsons looked on helplessly. "Of course, if Tom was home, he'd put it right in a moment," she said. "He loves anything like that. He's ever so good with his hands, Tom is." So, Winston, he works for the party, and he's a pussy. He can't work with his hands. He hates working with his hands. It's not that you can't. I can't. I can't work with my hands. I'm like mediocre at some electrical stuff. But like, I like to do it. I love doing it. I just don't really know how. I need more experience. This guy hates doing it. So is he even a man? Asking the real questions here. Parsons was Winston's fellow employee of the Ministry of Truth. Oh, another employee of the Ministry of Truth. And she can't keep her house clean. There's something to say there about, like, government employees, like, are messed up and bad. He was a fattish but active man of paralyzing stupidity. Oh, we're talking about the guy. The guy works at the Ministry of Truth. He was a fattish but active man of paralyzing stupidity. He was an epsilon. A mass of imbecile enthusiasms. One of those completely unquestioning, devoted drudges on whom, more even than on the thought police, the stability of the party depended. So the party depends on slow people. Makes sense. America's the same way. The Democrat Party depends on slow people. But of course, see, this is the thing. You got like the conservative movement. You have super unintelligent people who go purely on instinct, magod, guns, whatever, which you catch me saying things like that. And then you have like the smart end of people, like the average doctor, the average lawyer is a Republican. But then it's like, of course, the most notable ones are Democrat, because that's where money is. The playing law games and doctors talking about vaccines being paid for by the Democrat Party. Or whatever. In Minecraft, is that how I avoid a community strike? I said the V word. I don't know if I'm allowed to do that. But anyway, so talking about stupid people is what drives fascism's authoritarianisms, which probably makes sense. I feel like the average German in Nazi Germany must have went more on instinct when Hitler was castigating the people that he did. I'm very careful with that word because I've been community striked for it. So I'm going to stop talking about H-Man, and I'm going to read the book. At 35, he had just been unwillingly evicted from the Youth League. At 35. And before graduating into the Youth League, he had managed to stay on the spies for a year beyond the statutory age. At the ministry, he was employed in some subordinate post for which intelligence was not required. But on the other hand, he was a leading figure on the sports committee and all other committees engaged in organizing community hikes. I read that with the wrong cadence. He was on the sports committee and all other committees engaged in organizing community hikes, spontaneous demonstrations, savings campaigns, and voluntary activities generally. He would inform you with quiet pride between whiffs of his pipe that he had put in an appearance at the community center every evening for the past 4 years. An overpowering smell of sweat, a sort of unconscious testimony to the strenuousness of his life, followed him about wherever he went, and even remained behind him after he had gone. I need coffee. Cheers. So you got this guy. He ain't smart, but he's motivated. He likes to organize community events. I feel like he's a good-hearted guy doing evil stuff. And I feel like that is most of government. At least low-level government. People that want to help. People that want to do what's right and serve their community. But little do they know, they're serving evil. They should, go to church if they want to help. I went to a church one time and they gave us free food. I'm not a church-going guy. Never really belonged to a church, but I like to go every now and then. My fiance loves going to church, so that kind of motivates me. I don't love going to church because I don't know anyone there. I feel weird. Is that wrong? Maybe. Probably. So, stinky, smelly, hardworking guy. Have you got a spanner? Let me read that in my British accent. Have you got a spanner? British people, man. Said Winston. No, asked Winston. Silly George Orwell. Fiddling with the nut on the angle joint. A spanner, said Mrs. Parsons, immediately becoming invertebrate. Yeah, that says invertebrate. She turned into a worm. I don't know. I'm sure. Perhaps the children. There was a trampling of boots and another blast on the comb as the children charged into the living room. Mrs. Parsons brought the spanner. Winston let out the water and disgustedly removed the clot of human hair that had blocked up the pipe. He cleaned his fingers as best he could in the cold water from the tap and went back into the other room. That was a little note there. Cold water from the tap, because assumedly they don't have hot water. And how are you getting human hair in your kitchen sink? What are you doing? Do you not have a bathroom? What's the condition? I can only imagine what the condition of the shower drain is if the kitchen sink has human hair in it. Gross. Up with your hands, yelled a savage voice. A handsome, tough-looking boy of 9 had popped up from behind the table and was menacing him with a toy automatic pistol, while his small sister, about 2 years younger, made the same gesture with a fragment of wood. Both of them were dressed in the blue shorts, gray shirts, and red neckerchiefs, which were the uniform of the spies. Winston raised his hands above his head, but with an uneasy feeling, so vicious was the boy's demeanor, that it was not altogether a game. With an uneasy feeling that was not altogether a game. Okay, so the spies, basically little children's league to get them to spy on people. Freaky. Kind of what was it? I think it was something from California where they encourage kids to snitch on their parents or something like that. I don't know. I'm completely uninformed. Don't know. But there was something like that. Maybe, I don't know. Generally, you can kind of consider when schools hide that their kids are transgender from the parents. That's almost like a spy league type thing. Hey, tell us if your parents want you to be a trans. Oh, I'm not supposed to say that word, am I? Transmission in my car is broken. I need a new transmission. I need a new it's broken. I think I saved it. Oh, jeez. Where are we at? You're a traitor, yelled the boy. You're a thought criminal. You're a Eurasian spy. I'll shoot you. I'll vaporize you. I'll send you to the salt mines. Little does he know, he is. I like how that's the order. I'll shoot you. I'll vaporize you. I'll send you to the salt mines. I assume it's a forced labor thing. I'd love to work in a salt mine though. I would love to be a miner. I mean, not for the 16-hour days that they put in. But like a couple hours, that's kind of fun. It looks cool. But yeah, it's grueling work over time. Suddenly, they were both leaping around him, shouting, "Traitor" and "thought criminal," the little girl imitating her brother in every movement. It was somehow slightly frightening, like the gambling of tiger cubs, which will soon grow up into man-eaters. There was a sort of calculating ferocity in the boy's eyes, a quite evident desire to hit or kick Winston, and a consciousness of being very nearly big enough to do so. It was a good job it was not a real pistol he was holding, Winston thought. Calculating ferocity in the boy's eyes. So it's like, after what he had just done in that notebook, which is like peak thought crime, like get freaking eliminated, nerd. Like, I imagine it's scary to have kids come up to you calling you a thought criminal. They're playing around, but like there's still like that deep-seated, like, yeah, how do you know? But you get what I'm saying. Mrs. Parsons' eyes flitted nervously from Winston to the children and back again. In the better light of the living room, he noticed with interest that there actually was dust in the creases of her face. Face. What the frick is a face, man? Coffee time. Yeah, you like that eye contact, don't you? They do get so noisy, she said. They're disappointed because they couldn't go to see the hanging. That's what it is. I'm too busy to take them, and Tom won't be back from work in time. I agree with public hangings. I think they should exist for like certain political figures and certain treasonous members of society. But kids are disappointed they don't get to see someone killed. I mean, he's also playing with a gun, which, yeah, I played with a gun, but I didn't pretend to arrest someone for thought crimes. There's moral firearm play, and then there's immoral firearm play. And this is immoral firearm play. Want to see the hanging. Want to see the hanging, chanted the little girl, still capering around. Is she Golem? My precious, I want to see the hanging. That's like Yoda. I'm freaking little gremlin girl. Some Eurasian prisoners, guilty of war crimes, were to be hanged in the park that evening, Winston remembered. This happened about once a month and was a popular spectacle. Children always clamored to be taken to see it. The fact that it's the children clamoring to see it and not like adults kind of assuaging their children to do it, to go and see, is it's doing what it's supposed to do. It's a device. It's a world building device to show the perversion, and it's effective. Children always clamored to be taken to see it. He took his leave of Mrs. Parsons and made for the door. But he had not gone 6 steps down the passage when something hit the back of his neck. An agonizingly painful blow. I feel like that grammar's messed up. Like he's hitting a blow. Something hit him in the neck, and it hurt. It was as though a red-hot wire had been jabbed into him. He spun round just in time to see Mrs. Parsons dragging her son back into the doorway, while the boy pocketed a catapult? Like a slingshot? He got slingshotted in the neck. Goldstein, bellowed the boy as the door closed on him. But what most struck Winston was the look of helpless fright on the woman's grayish face. Are those kids like psychic? Do they actually know? And I mentioned it last time. Goldstein. Goldstein is the enemy of the state. Is he really good? Is he really a good is he really on our side? When you learn his methods, no, he's not. He's a Brave New World guy. But we'll cross that bridge when we get there. We're nowhere near Goldstein yet. Back in the flat, He stepped quickly past the telescreen and sat down at the table again, still rubbing his neck. The music from the telescreen had stopped. Instead, a clipped military voice was reading out, with a sort of brutal relish, a description of the armaments of the new floating fortress, which had just been anchored between Iceland and the Faroe Islands. Floating fortress. Kind of like the flying fortress, which was a thing. Is it a boat? Is it an actual island? Like, manufactured island? Let's find out. It said it was anchored. Who knows? But yeah, the fact that this telescreen just plays whatever you want, whatever it wants to play all the time. Suffice it to say, that'd be annoying. But that's the propaganda machine. That's their version of conditioning, of Pavlovian conditioning, like they say in Brave New World. That's how they're conditioning the populace to, like, follow the rules by forcing them to listen to propaganda all the time. It's like a proven fact. If you listen to a song over and over, you'll start to like it. If you look at, like, an ugly person every single day, you'll start to not think they're ugly. If you just these things where, like, if you're conditioning yourself to look at something, to listen, to have this sensory stimulation, it won't be so stimulating. You know, it's kind of like a porn addiction in the sense that it doesn't work so good after a while. Which is why I support the ID verifications, because that's a hassle that I think a lot of people aren't willing to go through to get their fix. And I think that's a net good. That is a net good. And it's like, that's stupid too. Like, that's not stupid. I think it's a great law to have on the books. But like, the hub, I said earlier in this video, Pornhub, they're pulling out of states that require ID verification. So they're just literally pedophilic. They're literally just terrible. Just terrible. Hey. I don't like that you require people on this site to be 18. What? Excuse me? Terrible. Like, they pulled out of Florida. I think they're pulling out of Indiana now. So I've heard. It's just, and you know who owns that website? Little Hat Man. Little Hat people. Crazy. Where the heck are we? So, yeah, the helpless fright on the woman's face. Back in the flat. Okay, we're talking about the floating fortress between Iceland and the Faroe Islands. With those children, he thought, that wretched woman must lead a life of terror. Another year, 2 years, and they would be watching her night and day for symptoms of unorthodoxy. Nearly all children nowadays were horrible. What was worst of all was that by means of such organizations as the spies, they were systematically turned into ungovernable little savages. And yet this produced in them no tendency whatsoever to rebel against the discipline of the party. Which is odd. You can't be disciplined by your parents, but you can be disciplined by the party just fine. There's kind of a, what kind of conditioning's going on in there. Like, the party profits off of sort of chaos, right? If there's infighting in the streets, no one's going to be fighting the government. Think about that. Like black on black crime in Chicago. How about you direct that energy towards, like, the mayor of Chicago, or towards, like, I don't know, the director of the ATF. Until Brandon Herrera becomes the director of ATF. That's going to be so fire. I haven't been following that story at all. I hope good news is coming. So, they can't rebel against the discipline of the party. On the contrary, they adored the party and everything connected with it. The songs, the processions, the banners, the hiking, the drilling with dummy rifles, the yelling of slogans, the worship of Big Brother. It was all a sort of glorious game to them. All their ferocity was turned outwards, against the enemies of the states, against foreigners, traitors, saboteurs, thought criminals. It was almost normal for people over 30 to be frightened of their own children. And with good reason, for hardly a week passed in which the Times did not carry a paragraph describing how some eavesdropping little sneak, child hero, was the phrase generally used, had overheard some compromising remark and denounced his parents to the thought police. That makes me question, is the spies, like, compulsory? Do you have to put your kids into this program? It kind of makes me think about how, like, my little sister used to tell her elementary school teacher that her parents beat her. Which, like, she got a slap on the mouth every now and then when she deserved it. I never told anyone when worse happened to me. Like, I deserved it. Like, what? But kind of the idea that your child goes to this place for hours and hours a day. You don't know what they might be saying to them about you, lies, whatever they're, like, coaxed to say. I think one time I was coaxed into saying that my, like, dad was abusive, which arguably he was, but, like, they didn't need to know that. Like, just trying to draw a parallel from this to our world. Child hero. It's kind of crazy. The sting of the catapult bullet had worn off. He picked up his pen half-heartedly, wondering whether he could find something more to write in the diary. Suddenly, he began thinking of O'Brien again. Was I saying O'Brien or O'Brien? I think I gave him a name, and it was kind of silly, but I don't remember what it was. It's spelled with an E. O''B''R''I''N. That's the guy who, from chapter 1, who kind of, like, made eye contact with Winston, and they were like, "Frick this, man!" Years ago. How long was it? 7 years it might be. He had dreamed that he was walking through a pitch-dark room, and someone sitting to one side of him had said as he passed, "We shall meet in the place where there is no darkness." It was said very quietly, almost casually. A statement, not a command. He had walked on without pausing. What was curious was that at the time, in the dream, the words had not made much impression on him. It was only later, and by degrees, that they had seemed to take on significance. So, these words, like, slowly, he's like, that's weird. Oh, wait a minute. Hey, hang on. Oh! Like a progression, it's degrees. So by degrees, they seemed to take on significance. He could not now remember whether it was before or after having the dream that he had seen O'Brien for the first time. Nor could he remember when he had first identified the voice as O'Brien's. But at any rate, the identification existed. It was O'Brien who had spoken to him out of the dark. So we're getting into like future, people who think they can see the future through their dreams. My mom used to do that. But maybe he can see the future. Maybe this O'Brien character is significant. Winston had never been able to feel sure. Even after this morning's flash of the eyes, it was impossible to be sure whether O'Brien was a friend or an enemy. Nor did it even seem to matter greatly. There was a link of understanding between them, more important than affection or partisanship. "We shall meet in the place where there is no darkness," he had said. Winston did not know what it meant, only that in some way or another it would come true. So meeting in the place where there is no darkness, it's like they almost already did that in that room, the 2 minutes hate or whatever the heck, when they looked each other in the eyes. Room where there is no darkness, there's people around, everyone's eyes are on them essentially, but they had that moment. You could almost translate it like that, or maybe there will be another moment where they meet. I don't remember at all Oberyn's role in the story, if there is a continued role. I know there's a lady at some point. That's neither here nor there. That's actually here in the book. Not there. Nor did it seem to matter greatly. There's a link of understanding, the meeting place. I finished that paragraph. Only in some way or another that it would come true. The voice from the telescreen paused. A trumpet call, clear and beautiful, floated into the stagnant air. The voice continued raspingly. What do you think is going to happen? I bet they're going to war with East Asia now. And Eurasia has always been their friend. Attention! Your attention, please. A newsflash has this moment arrived from the Malabar front. Our forces in South India have won a glorious victory. I am authorized to say that the action we are now reporting may well bring the war within measurable distance of its end. Here is the news flash. The war never ends. That's the news flash. So South India? Like the horn of India? Are they like, is it like a naval attack? What's going on with that? Bad news coming, thought Winston. Almost always. And sure enough, following on a gory description of the annihilation of a Eurasian army with stupendous figure of killed and prisoners, came the announcement that, as from next week, the chocolate ration would be reduced from 30 grams to 20. 20 grams of chocolate isn't a lot. And why are they reducing the ration? Are they sending more to the front lines? They presumably captured part of India, which I think has climate to grow chocolate. They could make more. We have the land now to make more chocolate. So why does a victory result in increased rations? Because they're saying the war, we could see the end. We just need to tighten up these rations, improve troop morale, whatever. So, screw you. Winston belched again. The gin was wearing off, leaving a deflated feeling. The telescreen, perhaps to celebrate the victory, perhaps to drown the memory of the lost chocolate, crashed into Oceana, 'tis for thee. You were supposed to stand to attention. However, in his present position, he was invisible. He's not standing to attention for the national anthem. That's another. I was going to mention. Oh, I didn't want to cut off that. But I bet the chocolate is also just really low quality. Like, he described the gin as just being horrible. And the cigarettes, like, the tobacco would just fall out. So I bet the chocolate is just bad. I imagine it's horribly bitter. It's just like, why would you even want... Like, can I trade in my 20 grams of chocolate for... What would even be worth 20 grams of yeast? Dry yeast? 20 grams of baking powder? 20 grams is not a freaking lot. That's like 2 tablespoons? And chocolate is denser than, like, salt. Which is what I'm kind of basing this off in my head. I do a bit of baking, I know. Oceana, 'tis for thee gave way to lighter music. Winston walked over to the window, keeping his back to the telescreen. The day was still cold and clear. Somewhere far away, a rocket bomb exploded with a dull, reverberating roar. About 20 or 30 of them a week were falling on London at present. 20 or 30. 20 divided by 7, that's like 2.5 per day-ish. 2 1/3 maybe, I don't know. So, it's the noon bomb. Like, my alarm clock, a freaking nuke. Just crazy to think of that. It's like, I was on iFunny the other day, and I saw this video from, like, either Gaza or the Ukraine. I don't know, and I don't care. Point is, there was air raid sirens. People were playing at a park. Air raid sirens went off, and they were just still hanging out at the park. And then guess what? It exploded. something exploded, and then they started screaming. Like, could you not have guessed that from the siren? Like, you think if you live in an active war zone, you would understand how to react to an air raid siren? But maybe not. I don't know. Oceanography gave way. So where the heck is the bomb? 20 or 30 of them were falling on London at present. Down in the street, the wind flapped the torn poster to and fro, and the word Ingsoc fitfully appeared and vanished. Ingsoc. The sacred principles of Ingsoc. Newspeak, doublethink, the mutability of the past. He felt as though he were wandering in the forests of the sea bottom, lost in a monstrous world where he himself was the monster. He was alone. The past was dead. The future was unimaginable. What certainty had he that a single human creature now living was on his side? And what way of knowing that the dominion of the party would not endure forever? Like an answer, the three slogans on the white face of the Ministry of Truth came back to him. War is peace. Freedom is slavery. Ignorance is strength. He should have said, like, ignorance is intelligence. Because then he got a little bit of alliteration, too. But, like, the point is still made. I think they mentioned these three guiding principles in chapter 1, so I don't want to hark on them right now, but still, the fact that they literally say, war is peace, is like, they're at such a point, the people are, like, so sedated, so conditioned, that you can literally go, as a government, go and say, war is peace, and they'll clap. It's like, what was it? Some freaking... Oh, I need to listen to the news more. Some, like, government official just, like, came out and said something that, like, if it was, like, even 5 years ago, would have, like, got him hanged. And it's like, he was applauded for it. I don't remember what it was. If I remember to look it up, I will put it in the comments of this video. This video is coming out in 2 weeks. I'll put it in the description of the video. If I remember. I probably won't. He took a 25-cent piece out of his pocket. There, too, in tiny clear lettering, the same slogans were inscribed. I wonder if it's, like, around the ring that they got the three slogans, or, like, if it's just the coin face, and then, like, printed in lines. I bet it looks ugly either way. On the other face of the coin, the head of Big Brother. So yeah, Big Brother's on one side, and then words is on the other side. It sounds like a bland bland coin. Even from the coin, the eyes pursued you. On coins, stamps, the covers of books, banners, posters, and on the wrappings of a cigarette packet. Everywhere. Always the eyes watching you, and the voice enveloping you. Asleep or awake. Working or eating. Indoors or out of doors. In the bath or in bed. No escape. Nothing was your own except the few cubic centimeters inside your skull. That can be applied today to, like, how so many people post on social media all the time. I'm the same freaking way, I'm not gonna lie. Like, except I just use different social medias. I'm not posting everything on, like, Instagram, Snapchat story. I do my Snapchat story every now and then. But it's like, we don't keep things to ourselves so much anymore. Like, everything is out there. And even if you don't say it, like, your cell phone's freaking microphone is listening to you to push ads on you. Maybe. I think that was debunked, but that's not the point. Your GPS data is used to generate advertisements. Anything that Google is connected to is generating advertisements for you. Every single, like, freaking mail service. You get the idea. Advertisements. Everything is watching you for advertisements, so they can sell an effective ad to you. And it's like nothing is private except for what is in here. And it's kind of crazy. Where the heck was I, man? Nothing was your own except the few cubic centimeters inside your skull. The sun had shifted round, and the myriad windows of the Ministry of Truth, with the light no longer shining on them, looked grim as the loopholes of a fortress. Loopholes of a fortress. Is that... I'm trying to... I don't know what exactly he means by the loopholes of a fortress. Is it like the portholes that you would like stick your barrel through and just bang, bang, bang? Loopholes. Could it... I don't know. His heart quailed before the enormous pyramidal shape. It was too strong. It could not be stormed. 1,000 rocket bombs would not batter it down. That reminds me of a conversation I had with ChatGPT the other day about blowing up a Federal Reserve. He said, ChatGPT said, "You cannot blow it up." I was like, well, what if it was a really big bomb? He said, no. I'm like, okay. He wondered again for whom he was writing the diary. For the future, for the past, for an age that might be imaginary. And in front of him there lay not death, but annihilation. The diary would be reduced to ashes, and himself to vapor. Only the thought police would read what he had written, before they wiped it out of existence, and out of memory. How could you make appeal to a future when not a trace of you, not even an anonymous word scribbled on a piece of paper, could physically survive? That's kind of crazy. How things can just vanish. It's like again on iFunny. I'm referencing iFunny a lot, but the second Donald Trump would-be assassin popped up on there, and there was this big article. And it's like no mainstream outlets talking about it. It's like we just forgot about this guy. It was that he had visited Fort Sumter, maybe? A military installation many, many times, spending the night a couple times. And it was just hidden. It's just a hidden article. They don't want you to think about these things. They memory hole it. Wow. That word came from this book. But when you think about what the news media does, it kind of does the same thing. Except it doesn't literally kill people. It destroys stories. It hides them. It buries them. The telescreen struck 14. Oh, so it's also a clock. That's nice. He must leave in 10 minutes. He had to be back at work by 14:30. Wait, was he on, break this whole time? I don't remember. Curiously, the chiming of the hour seemed to have put new heart into him. He was a lonely ghost uttering a truth that nobody would ever hear. But so long as he uttered it, in some obscure way, the continuity was not broken. It was not by making yourself heard, but by staying sane that you carried on the human heritage. He went back to the table, dipped his pen, and wrote, "To the future or to the past, to a time when thought is free." That goes hard, when thought is free. When men are different from one another and do not live alone. To a time when truth exists and what is done cannot be undone. From the age of uniformity, from the age of solitude, from the age of Big Brother, from the age of doublethink. Greetings. That paragraph goes crazy. Goes crazy. But it really is the age of solitude because they don't have sex. I think I mentioned I wasn't going to spoil that, but they don't have sex. And there's a scene later here where he has sex. And he's like, oh wow, that was cool. Which almost makes me, not almost, it does make me question, where do babies come from? Is that answered later? I don't even remember. Where the heck do babies come from if they ain't viviparous? I know that word because of Brave New World. Which you should check out. Check out Brave New World. Check it out. New episode last Thursday. New episode this Thursday. January 9th. Check it out. He was already dead, he reflected. It seemed to him that it was only now, when he had begun to be able to formulate his thoughts, that he had taken the decisive step. The consequences of every act are included in the act itself, he wrote. thought crime does not entail death. Thought crime is death. So it's saying that, committing a thought crime, the minute you commit that thought crime, you're already dead. Because I think, essentially, to think differently from the uniform mass, to think differently from everyone, to be the one outcast, or at least to be the one person that you're cognizant of, you're basically dead. You're societally dead. You can never be you. You always have to put on a front for fear of being killed. And it really makes you question how many people do this. How many people commit thought crime, but they put on this facade. But also the point is that if you lie and lie and lie, you're going to get caught up in the lies. And you're going to get caught one day. It's like people who lie a lot die a lot sooner because your brain, dementia, it struggles to keep the truth from lies. I heard that on Timcast, I think. That's my source. Now that he had recognized himself as a dead man, it became important to stay alive as long as possible. That sentence is cool. Now that he recognizes himself as a dead man, he finds it important to stay alive. But kind of like representative of human mortality in general. If memento mori, remember death, if you're cognizant of the fact that you're gonna die, you're much more likely to make the most of it, or just kill yourself. One or the other. Don't do that. Please do not. Call, what is it? Call 911. Call the police if you're thinking of killing yourself. I think I have to say that on YouTube. Don't do that. It's not Christian of you to kill yourself. I've said so many things in this video that should get it taken down. But it's 1984. Good book. So he finds it important to stay alive as long as possible. 2 fingers of his right hand were ink-stained. It was exactly the kind of detail that might betray you. Some nosing zealot in the ministry, a woman probably, someone like the little sandy-haired woman or the dark-haired girl from the fiction department, might start wondering why he had been writing during the lunch interval. Why he had used an old-fashioned pen. Pen. Old-fashioned pen, not penned. Why he'd used an old-fashioned pen. What he had been writing. And then drop a hint in the appropriate quarter. He went to the bathroom and carefully scrubbed the ink away with the gritty, dark brown soap which rasped your skin like sandpaper, and was therefore well adapted for this purpose. So that's amazing. You get, in that one paragraph, you get an instance, another example of how rationing and just how crappy all their stuff is, and you get another example of the very fact that there's ink on your fingers will have people questioning you. That's true in real life. Why do you got ink on your fingers? Oh, I was writing with a fountain pen. It happened to me all the time. I have a fountain pen. It's broken. I dropped it once on the nib and now it doesn't write. So I have to find out how to buy a new nib for it. It's a Twisby. It's really cool. But people ask you how you got ink on your fingers. But this is actually dire. Because you shouldn't have ink on your fingers. It's immoral to have ink on your fingers to begin with, because you shouldn't be writing with an old pen. You shouldn't be doing that. Such things are wrong. In themselves, they are crimes. And then the soap, it's gritty. I kind of like a gritty soap, It gets in there better. Which is what he's saying. It gets in there better, and it's scrubbing the dang ink off. He put the diary away in the drawer. It was quite useless to think of hiding it, but he could at least make sure whether or not its existence had been discovered. He's putting it in the drawer so that he knows if someone finds it. So he can make sure whether or not its existence had been discovered. A hair laid across the page ends was too obvious. With the tip of his finger, he picked up an identifiable grain of whitish dust and deposited it on the corner of the cover, where it was bound to be shaken off if the book was moved. That's like some spy movie stuff. That was the end of the chapter. you'll see them, they put like a hair on the doorknob so that if someone comes into the hotel room, they know and they need to like run or whatever. I can't fathom how well that works. Do you never have a draft in your hotel? Like maybe you could like wedge it in the door, like wedge it on top of the door. I don't know, but he's not trying to hide it necessarily. He just wants to know if someone found it, because then he knows his death is coming. Which there was a lot of talk about how he has come to terms with, yep, I'm gonna die. Not just gonna die. I'm going to be eliminated from history. I think that was the theme of this chapter: is complete and utter annihilation. The elaboration upon like the spies and the youth league, and parents being afraid of their children. There's the we talked about how the smallest things can give you away. Ink on your fingers. You talked about just the rationing scenario. 20 grams of chocolate. Not a lot of chocolate. Go weigh a freaking chocolate bar. 20 grams isn't a lot. I'm going to go weigh something. I don't know. That's got me questioning. Talked about how people can just be eliminated and memory hold, and how that can happen in real life. How the media plays these games. You never hear them talk about. I'm not going to say that. I don't watch mainstream media, so I don't know what the heck they're talking about. I only know what Steven Crowder tells me, Matt Walsh tells me, Tim Pool tells me. That's probably not a good thing to be a stable human. I should probably consume mass media and then make like my own decisions on what they're saying, but I'm not going to. Screw you. I don't want to give you a dime. I don't want to give you any watch time. But that's all I got to say. That's the end of Chapter 2, 1984. Tune in next Tuesday for another one. This Thursday, Brave New World, Chapter 3. That book is heating up, let me tell you. Woo-wee! But this video, we're at like an hour right now. I'm looking. My old videos were like they're an hour and a half. How much was I yapping? I don't know. I hope you all enjoy how I'm doing it now. Not yapping as much, evidently. Or maybe the chapters just got shorter after the first one. Introductory chapters tend to be either really long or really short. But I'm excited to continue this series. If I ever get some sort of returning viewership, I want to expand this channel too. I want to do a little more. I've got some ideas in my head, like for short-term videos, like Verse Wednesday, maybe, I don't know, where I read a small snippet of something, or I read like poetry, something, but I just don't know what would be short, self-contained in like 20 minutes to 30 minutes for something like that. I might just do that based on like viewer recommendation, which is why I need a freaking audience to give me ideas, man. That's like so much of bigger YouTubers, like their content is like, a lot of you guys have been telling me, like, I'm just kind of doing this myself, So until I get something built up here, and then I can be lazy. That's neither here nor there. I'm gonna cut it off here. I'm excited to give a lot, don't I? I hope y'all don't find that annoying. I'm gonna work on it. I'm gonna try and contain my uhs. But that's it for today. God bless each and every one of you. I'm excited to get into this. I'm excited to build something here. I mentioned it in the Brave New World one I just recorded, but I saw that my other episodes had like 30 views, which is like on par with some of my higher viewed videos. So I'm proud of this. I'm happy to see the engagement. I'm happy y'all are liking it. That's all I can say. Just keep liking it. Check me on Spotify. Follow my Twitter, my X. I'll see y'all next time. Hope y'all had a Merry Christmas. Tomorrow's Christmas. I need to go Christmas shopping tonight.
I'm gonna shut up. Bye!